Can you believe the performance from that quarterback? Over 500 yards and multiple touchdowns. How are you going to lose in a week when your quarterback does that? Welcome to another episode of Fantasy Football Free For All. This is our Week 4 takeaways. Starting off, we've got Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon had a heck of a performance this week. He showed why you took him in the first 2 rounds. The problem is we don't know whether or not this is based on the Jaguars' poor run defense or if Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow have finally clicked and this is the way it's going to be going forward. Our hope is that Joe Mixon will have more 2 and 3 touchdown games. But considering that this is more yardage than in the last 2 games combined, I'm still a little nervous. I want to see it again before we get too excited. Now, Gibson in Washington also had a stellar performance. He had 8 receptions, which is huge upside. He's been in the end zone for the last 3 weeks. He looks like a real RB1, RB2 that you can count on most weeks, especially considering this was against the Ravens. And the Ravens are supposed to be this unstoppable juggernaut, and he was able to get in the end zone and really show that why he was drafted where he was, and that maybe there's some life in this Washington football team. You have to remember, they're in the NFC East. Anybody could win that division. Now, there were some big injuries. Austin Eckler is likely to miss a few weeks with a hamstring knee injury that he suffered in the first quarter. It left fantasy managers really concerned. Kelly was supposed to be able to take that ball and just run with it. He's fumbling. He just doesn't seem to be able to really take advantage of this injury. And I think there's a chance that Jackson takes this job. So he's somebody I would be looking at on the waiver wire if you have an open spot. Kareem Hunt is also somebody who took advantage of an injury. Nick Chubb was injured in the second quarter with a knee injury. It rolled up on him. He had a meniscus tear. He's on IR now. Kareem Hunt is an RB1 all the way. He is currently RB7 in most PPR leagues. That's crazy, considering he was going in the 6th or 7th round. You've got to see if you can buy on him. I know he's going to be at an all-time high for value, but he has the potential to take you through to the championship in your fantasy leagues. Injuries are still plaguing us. Without Devontae Adams and Mike Thomas, the top wide receiver cores just keep getting thinner. We saw Godwin out. Evans was hurt. He got a weird hyperextension. We're not sure if that's going to keep him out. He did come back and play. O.J. Howard out. Not that anybody was really relying on him. Gronk just underperformed. But we didn't see these marquee days for some of these players. We saw an okay production from Marquise Brown, but I'm still concerned that the wide receiver cores are just so depleted. Another big takeaway is how dynamic this Dallas offense is and how bad that defense is. Not only did they get absolutely slammed down by the Browns with over 200 yards rushing, Dak Prescott kept them in there. He had over 500 yards. That makes you so confident in the other Dallas pass catchers, with the exception of Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup had a terrible game. I don't know why he couldn't break free, and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb both feasted. It's confusing. I think that he is going to be a boom or bust type player, and there are going to be weeks where he wins you your league, but there are going to be weeks where he has 4 points. Take that to heart and just really choose when and what matchup it is for Michael Gallup. On the other side of the ball, the Browns proved that they could be a competitor. They chose not to have Baker Mayfield air it out. They used their best players well. Kevin Stefanski showed that he can dial up a gadget-y offense that does something. And the defense did just enough to keep them in the lead. It's going to be an interesting season for the Browns. The Buccaneers showed that Tom Brady still has a little left in the tank. He was over 300 yards, several touchdowns. He really did look like Tom Brady of old. I have to acknowledge that I was very much negative on Tom Brady, but I think that I'm wrong. I think maybe he has one more season left in him. If they can get some of their key weapons back, Leonard Fournette, Godwin, Evans, and get Gronk going, that could be a real positive move for Tampa Bay, who has a pretty solid defense. I'm kind of excited about what's going to come from that team. And that's a big thing to say because I was so low on them in the offseason. Finally, the biggest takeaway from me this week is how much of a mess the Texans and Cardinals are. With Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray, you should be competitive in every single game. But those teams just aren't. Kenyon Drake looks terrible. David Johnson doesn't look good. The pass catchers are doing okay. DeAndre Hopkins is a target monster, but with a quarterback like Kyler Murray, they should be able to move the ball at will, and they aren't able to. I think both of these teams are going to be in the bottom third of the league, and that is a surprise considering where the expectations were based on the deals that they made. I wouldn't be surprised at all if DeAndre Hopkins is unhappy in Arizona at the end of the year. I think that this is a situation to watch, and if I'm a Kenyon Drake owner or a David Johnson owner, I am getting very, very concerned. On Monday night, we have two games. We have the Chiefs Patriots, and we have the Falcons Packers. For the Chiefs Patriots, it's without Cam Newton. That essentially cuts off the head of that team. I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into an incredibly lopsided affair. That defense is still okay, but without any production on offense, how can you start them? How can you rely on them? I'm starting all my Chiefs. I look for a really solid production from Kelsey, CEH, and Tyreek Hill. I think those are the only ones that you're going to, though. Sammy Watkins, I'm not really that excited. On the other side of the ball, there's not a player I'm touching. I'm not going with Burkhead. I'm not going with Michelle. I'm not going with Edelman. I'm not going with N'Keal Harry. There's not a single startable player. Stay away. Just avoid it. They may have a competitive game, I guess, but you just don't know what Stidham's going to do. I'd much rather have Brian Hoyer throwing the ball. It's just a mess. Now, the Falcons-Packers game is also a mess because the Falcons are reeling. They just can't put away games. I think that there will be tons and tons of air yards. So Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Hayden Hurst and maybe Russell Gage, if he plays, are all solid producers. On the other side of the ball, Todd Gurley, I'm not interested. I just think that he's going to see a continued decline. He may score, but that's about all he is. He's a touchdown-dependent RB2, RB3. Whereas Aaron Jones is showing that he's running back one value all the way to the bank. The touchdowns are there. Without Devontae Adams, he is clearly the number one player on that team. Aaron Rodgers is going to make a stud out of somebody. Now, who it is everybody's guess. I mean, I personally think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is likely to see the biggest boost, but it could be Tonyan, it could be anybody. We just don't know. And it's going to be an interesting game. I think that the pure skill of Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones and a fairly stout defense will get them the win. But it could be interesting. That's my key breakdown of Week 4. Thank you for watching. Please consider to like, comment, and subscribe.